If I could recommend one financial book when you're young to start with, this one might just be it. Today I'm doing a book review of the book Set for Life by Scott Trench. His philosophy is to get to financial freedom and get to it fast. To quote him, to get to the other side of the rat race and staying there for a lifetime. This book is written for beginners in their 20s and early 30s. Don't worry if that's not you. This book has a lot of good ideas in it of various things that you can implement later on in life. The first things he has are some key concepts for reducing your big expenses. And his thing is to build financial runway, which is basically a pile of cash to get you through rough times. Say you build up, he first recommends building up something like $25,000 so that you can go to a lower paying job that has better opportunities. You can invest, say, in a house hack. The first one he goes into is frugality. Frugality, so you can save your first $2,500. That's in pretty much the first part of the book. The top 3 average American expenses are housing, transportation, and food. Housing being you buy the bigger and the better house in the better neighborhood. Transportation, you buy the big vehicle, you have a longer commute. And food spending assumes that you are buying a lot of your meals out. Even if you are buying your lunch at, say a store that has prepared sandwiches and stuff like that. So those are the 3 largest. This book discusses lowering those 3 costs as opposed to something where you're going, and he doesn't recommend lowering your fun money to a certain extent unless you're overspending. He's focusing main on the top 3 expenses. And with the housing, he suggests renting, house hacking, which is where you buy a double, like a 2-person household or a duplex, and you live in one half and rent out the other half, to pretty much to supplement your housing expenses by having somebody live in the other part of your home, or renting out rooms in your home. Live and flip, where you live in a property and you fix it up and then you sell it. And the primary residence for a single family, he suggests not necessarily getting something that's big and, say, in the best neighborhoods or something along those lines. He talks about living close to where your job is, maybe in a lower house, an area that has lower housing costs. Those are the big things to get those costs lower. The transportation, he suggested, not necessarily going and buying the biggest and newest SUV. Having financing on your vehicle is a huge expense. When you're driving a long ways to get to your job, you're going to have more insurance on your vehicle. You're going to have more wear and tear on your vehicle. And the transportation costs overall, it's going to be more gas money to get to your job. So he has suggested older and a smaller vehicle that you don't have to finance, and living closer to your job so that, you can be in a shorter commute distance so you can either walk or bike to work. And the food spending one was mainly going out to restaurants too frequently or buying your food, say, in a convenience store or something like that. If you make yourself a list intentionally and get your food in a grocery store and then prepare your food. So if you prepare your lunches for work or whatever and then bring it to work, it is going to be a lot less a lot less expensive than going to a convenience store and grabbing a sandwich on lunch break, or going and grabbing a pizza or something else. Plus, you have a better chance of eating a better quality food. While this book did not get into doing side hustles, and he generally suggested not necessarily fully against doing side hustles, but the fact that living frugally is less invasive to your life than getting another job. If you're living frugally, you're taking what you're already getting and you're reducing your spending on that, as opposed to you're having to go out and work more hours where you're already working whatever your job is, and then going and, say, working on the weekends or working after work. That kind of cuts in more into your actual time, your downtime, than, say, reducing your expenses. He went into a section for increasing your income. Skill development was one of them, with continuous improvement. Synergistic careers and side hustles. This would be where you get a side hustle that is synergistic or goes along the lines of what your current career is. So if you're a financial analyst, being a bookkeeper on the side is more of a synergistic type of a side hustle, as opposed to what I do. I work for a government as a clerk accountant type of a job, and then my side job is making tie-dye. That is definitely not synergistic. He also talks about taking higher value opportunities. So that would be where you've got this financial runway. You can quit your job and go to a job that's going to have a higher value opportunity if you have a financial runway. So if you have to go to a job that's paying you, say $5,000 or $10,000 less than your current job, but you know that in 2 years you're going to be making twice as much as you're making at your current job. If you have that financial runway, that's something that you can look into. And for the skill development and continuous improvement, it was constantly just learning in your spare time. Another concept that he goes into in the book is invest for freedom. He doesn't go into a lot of stock investment. His area of expertise is the house hacking and gaining income through real estate investment. His tips for that are to never spend the principal and reinvest most of the returns, which can go with either if you're investing in some type of real estate, or if you are investing in the stock market, you have that chunk that's in there. So if you bought a house for $100,000 and then you ended up selling that, you would use that to reinvest into another house of that, same amount. And the same with the stock market, to not spend the principal, but to spend some of the returns and then reinvest most of them if you can. Index fund investing was one of the things that he has talked about, which is buying a stock that follows the entire stock market. There are various brokerages that offer index funds that you can invest in with various things. I invest in a Vanguard one that pays a dividend. That's a super simple way to be a beginner investor. I have a course linked in the comments below where I do a beginner investing course, and I go over that in there if you're interested in that. Now, what I really liked about this book is his different approach to gaining financial freedom, but he gave a good practical advice where you would definitely need to do more research. If you were looking into buying a home and fixing it up and living in one half and selling or renting out the other half, it's something that he just kind of gives the general concept of how to do that, and and how much money you can gain by doing that, or how lower your expenses would be by doing that. That's something that you would definitely have to look into in more depth on your own. There were clear steps as to how to do this, and his first part, which he had said, was the first step is frugality and saving your first part. That was a very important part of the book. He really focused on the three big expenses, which I liked. So some of these principles, and I made a video of where I failed at three of his principles, and I still stick to that. Um, I like the frugality idea, and as far as the food, I do make most of my food at home. I wish that I knew a lot about the house hacking and I guess the idea of living closer to your job. I feel like living closer to my job. When I bought this house, I was working in a different state, which was it was around a 25 to 30 mile from here when I bought this house. So it wasn't a terrible commute. It was like a half an hour to 45 minutes. Currently, I work in another direction, which is a 25-mile commute from here. So the roads I go on now are they're worse, so it's like a 40-45 minute commute. I've always had a commute of that sort, and I understand the whole concept of living closer to your job. Unfortunately, I switched jobs after buying the house, so it didn't work out for me to live closer to my job, and there's really not a lot of industry where I live. I really like the idea of the house hacking and not buying the biggest and the best. I wish I knew that when I was younger, and I've gone over this in another video. I bought this huge, huge 200 or 2,000 square foot house, and I don't need that much space. I wish I had known about the house hacking and buying a duplex of some sort or a two-family home. I wish I had known that because that would have been a game changer for me. But I'm at the point now, I mean, I could sell the house, but I've only got around like 5 more years left on my mortgage, and I feel I really do like the house and I really do like my property. I I feel like it is a great place, even though there are drawbacks as far as the cost and whatnot. And that's one of the things, if you don't like the idea, you're not going to do it. And I wish I had known it before I bought this house, but now I'm at the point where I'm like, I really can't do anything about that. But what else can I do to get myself closer to financial freedom? This book, while it is geared for younger readers and people at the beginning of their life, he mentioned that a couple times. I wish that this book I wish that this book was out when I was younger, and I wish that there was a different mindset when I was younger. Being the Gen X, I feel that we have been raised, and no shade on our parents because they were raised the same way too. It was the same thing, like go to college, get a good job, get a house, and the whole buying up and up and up every time you get it's that was something that was ingrained in us, I believe, when we were younger. I wish there was a lot of this information out when I was younger and when I was looking to buy a house. That is pretty much who I would recommend to read this book is for younger people, but you can, if you are interested in implementing the things that he is talking about, anybody at any age can implement any of these things. And I mean, I could go and sell this house and move somewhere closer to work and buy a duplex at the where I live in the housing market right now. It doesn't make sense for me, and at least that's my excuse that I use. But if you're in a position, and you don't necessarily have to be in your 20s or 30s, but say you're in your late 40s, early 50s, and you're just getting divorced, and you're finding that you're out, not necessarily on the streets, you might be out on the streets, but finding out that you're in a part of your life where you are beginning fresh over again later on in life, you can absolutely use the principles in this book to start over and at least get yourself somewhat to retirement where you can actually have more of a financial independence in the future. So it is definitely a lot of the concepts not being necessarily for me, but there are a lot of really good concepts in here, and I highly recommend this, especially for younger people. But like I said, if you're in a season of life where you're finding you're starting over again, this is fantastic ideas. It's straightforward and simple ideas. It's pretty much laid out in in an easy to understand, and I didn't read it, but I listened to it, an easy way to get the concepts of this book and what to do. And even if you are in a time of your life where you're looking towards retirement, this does have a lot of good information. So let me know if you guys have read this book and what you thought about it, and if you have any other financial book recommendations that you feel was a good book for you. Thank you for watching. My name is Jen. Have a great day, and I will see you in the next one.